113. Astika Parva. Saunaka said, for what reason did that tiger among kings, the royal Janamejaya, determine to take the lives of the snakes by means of a sacrifice? O Sauti, tell us in full the true story. Tell us also why Astika, that best of regenerate ones, that foremost of ascetics, rescued the snakes from the blazing fire. Whose son was that monarch who celebrated the snake sacrifice? And whose son also was that best of regenerate ones? Sauti said, O best of speakers, this story of Astika is long. I will duly relate it in full. Oh, listen. Saunaka said, I am desirous of hearing at length the charming story of that rishi, the illustrious Brahmana named Astika. Sauti said, this history, first, recited by Krishna Dwaipayana, is called a Purana by the Brahmanas. It was formerly narrated by my wise father, Lama Mahābhārata, the disciple of Vyāsa, before the dwellers of the Naimisha forest, at their request. I was present at the recital, and, O Saunaka, since thou askest me, I shall narrate the history of Astika exactly as I heard it. Oh, listen, as I recite in full that sin-destroying story. The father of Astika was powerful like Prajapati. He was a brahmacharian, always engaged in austere devotions. He ate sparingly, was a great ascetic, and had his lust under complete control. And he was known by the name of Jarakaru. That foremost one among the Avaras, virtuous and of rigid vows, highly blessed and endued with great ascetic power, once undertook a journey over the world. He visited diverse places, bathed in diverse sacred waters, and rested where night overtook him. Endued with great energy, he practiced religious austerities, hard to be practiced by men of unrestrained souls. The sage lived upon air only, and renounced sleep forever. Thus going about like a blazing fire, one day he happened to see his ancestors, hanging heads down in a great hole, their feet pointing upwards. On seeing them, Jarakaru addressed them, saying, Who are you thus hanging heads down in this hole by a rope of Varuna fibers that is again secretly eaten into on all sides by a rat living here? The ancestors said, We are rishis of rigid vows, called Avaras. We are sinking low into the earth for want of offspring. We have a son named Jarakaru. Woe to us! That wretch hath entered upon a life of austerities only. The fool doth not think of raising offspring by marriage. It is for that reason, viz., the fear of extinction of our race, that we are suspended in this hole. Possessed of means, we fare like unfortunates that have none. O excellent one, who art thou that thus sorrowest as a friend on our account? We desire to learn, O Brahmana, who thou art that standest by us, and why, O best of men, thou sorrowest for us that are so unfortunate. Jarakaru said, Ye are even my sires and grandsires. I am that Jarakaru. Oh, tell me, how I may serve you. The fathers then answered, Try thy best, O child, to beget a son to extend our line. Thou wilt then, O excellent one, have done a meritorious art for both thyself and us. Not by the fruits of virtue, not by ascetic penances well hoarded up, acquireth the merit which one doth by becoming a father. Therefore, O child, by our command, set thy heart upon marriage and offspring. Even this is our highest good. Jarakaru replied, I shall not marry for my sake, nor shall I earn wealth for enjoyment, but I shall do so for your welfare only. According to this understanding, I shall, agreeably to the sastric ordinance, take a wife for attaining the end. I shall not act otherwise. If a bride may be had of the same name with me, whose friends would, besides, willingly give her to me as a gift in charity, I shall wed her duly. But who will give his daughter to a poor man like me for wife? I shall, however, accept any daughter given to me as alms. I shall endeavor, ye sires, even thus to wed a girl. Having given my word, I will not act otherwise. Upon her I will raise offspring for your redemption, so that, ye fathers, ye may attain to eternal regions of bliss, and may rejoice as ye like. So ends the 13th section in the Astika Parva of the Adiparva. The Mahābhārata. Adiparva. Section 14. Astika Parva continued. Soti said, that Brahmana of rigid vows then wandered over the earth for a wife, but a wife found he not. One day he went into the forest, and recollecting the words of his ancestors, he thrice prayed in a faint voice for a bride. Thereupon Vasuki rose and offered his sister for the rishi's acceptance. But the Brahmana hesitated to accept her, thinking her not to be of the same name with himself. The high-souled Jarakaru thought within himself, I will take none for wife who is not of the same name with myself. Then that rishi of great wisdom and austere penances asked him, saying, Tell me truly, what is the name of this thy sister, O snake? Vasuki replied, O Jarakaru, this my younger sister is called Jarakaru. Given away by me, accept this slender-waisted damsel for thy spouse. O best of Brahmanas, for thee I reserved her. Therefore, take her. Saying this, he offered his beautiful sister to Jarakaru, who then espoused her with ordained rites. So ends the 14th section in the Astika Parva of the Adiparva. The Mahābhārata. Adiparva. Section 15. Astika Parva continued. Soti said, O foremost of persons acquainted with Brahma, the mother of the snakes had cursed them of old, saying, He that hath the wind for his charioteer, viz., Agni, shall burn you all in Janamjaya's sacrifice. It was to neutralize that curse that the chief of the snakes married his sister to that high-souled rishi of excellent vows. The rishi wedded her according to the rites ordained in the scriptures, and from them was born a high-souled son called Astika. An illustrious ascetic, versed in the Vedas and their branches, he regarded all with an even eye, and removed the fears of both his parents. Then, after a long space of time, a king descending from the Pāṇḍava line celebrated a great sacrifice known as the snake sacrifice. After that sacrifice had commenced for the destruction of the snakes, Astika delivered the Nagas, viz., his brothers and maternal uncles and other snakes, from a fiery death. And he delivered his fathers also by begetting offspring. And by his austerities, O Brahmana, and various vows and study of the Vedas, he freed himself from all his debts. By sacrifices, at which various kinds of offerings were made, he propitiated the gods. By practicing the Brahmacharya mode of life he conciliated the rishis, and by begetting offspring he gratified his ancestors. Thus Jarakaru of rigid vows discharged the heavy debt he owed to his sires, who being thus relieved from bondage ascended to heaven. Thus having acquired great religious merit, Jarakaru, after a long course of years, went to heaven, leaving Astika behind. There is the story of Astika that I have related duly now. Tell me, O tiger of Bhrigu's race, what else I shall narrate. So ends the 15th section in the Astika Parva of the Adiparva, the Mahābhārata. Adiparva. Section 16. Astika Parva continued. Saunaka said, O Soti, relate once more in detail this history of the learned and virtuous Astika. Our curiosity for hearing it is great. O amiable one, thou speakest sweetly, with proper accent and emphasis. And we are well pleased with thy speech. thou speakest even as thy father. Thy sire was ever ready to please us. Tell us now the story as thy father had related it. Sati said, O, thou that art blessed with longevity, I shall narrate the history of Astika as I heard it from my father. O Brahmana, in the golden age, Prajapati had 2 daughters. O sinless one, the sisters were endowed with wonderful beauty. Named Kadru and Vinata, they became the wives of Kasyapa. Kasyapa derived great pleasure from his 2 wedded wives, and being gratified he, resembling Prajapati himself, offered to give each of them a boon. Hearing that their lord was willing to confer on them their choice blessings, those excellent ladies felt transports of joy. Kadru wished to have for sons 1,000 snakes all of equal splendor. And Vinata wished to bring forth 2 sons surpassing the 1,000 offsprings of Kadru in strength, energy, size of body, and prowess. Unto Kadru her lord gave that boon about a multitude of offspring. And unto Vinata also, Kasyapa said, Be it so. Then Vinata, having obtained her prayer, rejoiced greatly. Obtaining 2 sons of superior prowess, she regarded her boon fulfilled. Kadru also obtained her 1,000 sons of equal splendor. Bear the embryos carefully, said Kasyapa, and then he went into the forest, leaving his 2 wives pleased with his blessings. Sati continued, O best of regenerate ones, after a long time, Kadru brought forth 1,000 eggs, and Vinata 2. Their maidservants deposited the eggs separately in warm vessels. 500 years passed away, and the 1,000 eggs produced by Kadru burst, and out came the progeny. But the twins of Vinata did not appear. Vinata was jealous, and therefore she broke one of the eggs and found in it an embryo with the upper part developed but the lower one undeveloped. At this, the child in the egg became angry and cursed his mother, saying, Since thou hast prematurely broken this egg, thou shalt serve as a slave. Shouldst thou wait 500 years and not destroy, or render the other egg half-developed, by breaking it through impatience, then the illustrious child within it will deliver thee from slavery. And if thou wouldst have the child strong, thou must take tender care of the egg for all this time. Thus cursing his mother, the child rose to the sky. O Brahmana, even he is the charioteer of Surya, always seen in the hour of morning. Then at the expiration of the 500 years, bursting open the other egg, out came Garuda, the serpent-eater. O tiger of Bhrigu's race, immediately on seeing the light, that son of Vinata left his mother. And the lord of birds, feeling hungry, took wing in quest of the food assigned to him by the great ordainer of all. So ends the 16th section in the Astika Parva of the Adiparva. The Mahābhārata. Adiparva. Section 17. Astika Parva continued. Sati said, O ascetic, about this time the 2 sisters saw approaching near, that steed of complacent appearance named Kurukṣetra, who was worshipped by the gods, that gem of steeds, who arose at the churning of the ocean for nectar. Divine, graceful, perpetually young, creation's masterpiece, and of irresistible vigor, it was blessed with every auspicious mark. Saunaka asked, Why did the gods churn the ocean for nectar, and under what circumstances, and when, as you say, did that best of steeds so powerful and resplendent spring? Sati said, There is a mountain named Maha, of blazing appearance, and looking like a heap of effulgence. The rays of the sun falling on its peaks of golden luster are dispersed by them. Decked with gold and exceedingly beautiful, that mountain is the haunt of the gods and the Gandharvas. It is immeasurable and unapproachable by men of manifold sins. Dreadful beasts of prey wander over its breasts, and it is illuminated by many divine life-giving herbs. It stands kissing the heavens by its height and is the first of mountains. Ordinary people cannot even think of ascending it. It is graced with trees and streams, and resounds with the charming melody of winged choirs. Once the celestials sat on its begemmed peak in conclave. They who had practiced penances and observed excellent vows for ɛməhäːbhärətə now seemed to be eager seekers after ɛməhäːbhärətə, celestial ambrosia. Seeing the celestial assembly in anxious mood, Narayanā said to Brahman, "Do thou churn the ocean with the gods and the asuras. By doing so, ɛməhäːbhärətə will be obtained as also all drugs and gems. O, ye gods, chum the ocean, ye will discover ɛməhäːbhärətə." So ends the 17th section in the Astika Parva of the Adiparva. The Mahābhārata. Adiparva. Section 18. Astika Parva continued. Sati said, "There is a mountain called Mandara adorned with cloud-like peaks. It is the best of mountains, and is covered all over with intertwining herbs. There countless birds pour forth their melodies, and beasts of prey roam about. The gods, the apsaras and the kinnaras visit the place. Upwards it rises 11,000 yojanas, and descends downwards as much. The gods wanted to tear it up and use it as a churning rod, but failing to do so, came to Vishnu and Brahman, who were sitting together, and said unto them, "Devise some efficient scheme. Consider, ye gods, how Mandara may be dislodged for our good." Sati continued, "O son of Bhrigu." Vishnu with Brahman assented to it. And the lotus-eyed one, Vishnu, laid the hard task on the mighty Ananta, the prince of snakes. The powerful Ananta, directed thereto both by Brahman and Narayana, O Brahmana, tore up the mountain with the woods thereon and with the denizens of those woods. And the gods came to the shore of the ocean with Ananta and addressed the ocean, saying, "O ocean, we have come to churn thy waters for obtaining nectar." And the ocean replied, "Be it so, as I shall not go without a share of it. I am able to bear the prodigious agitation of my waters set up by the mountain." The gods then went to the king of tortoises and said to him, "O tortoise king, thou wilt have to hold the mountain on thy back." The tortoise king agreed, and Indra contrived to place the mountain on the former's back. And the gods and the asuras made of Mandara a churning staff and Vasuki the cord, and set about churning the deep for ɛməhäːbhärətə. The asuras held Vasuki by the hood and the gods held him by the tail. And Ananta, who was on the side of the gods, at intervals raised the snake's hood and suddenly lowered it. And in consequence of the stretch Vasuki received at the hands of the gods and the asuras, black vapors with flames issued from his mouth. These, turned into clouds charged with lightning, poured showers that refreshed the tired gods. And flowers that also fell on all sides of the celestials from the trees on the whirling Mandara, refreshed them. Then, O Brahmana, out of the deep came a tremendous roar like unto the roar of the clouds at the universal dissolution. Diverse aquatic animals being crushed by the great mountain gave up the ghost in the salt waters. And many denizens of the lower regions and the world of Varuna were killed. Large trees with birds on the whirling Mandara were torn up by the roots and fell into the water. The mutual friction of those trees also produced fires that blazed up frequently. The mountain thus looked like a mass of dark clouds charged with lightning. O Brahmana, the fire spread, and consumed the lions, elephants and other creatures that were on the mountain. Then Indra extinguished that fire by pouring down heavy showers. After the churning, O Brahmana, had gone on for some time, gummy exudations of various trees and herbs vested with the properties of Amrita mingled with the waters of the ocean. And the celestials attained to immortality by drinking of the water mixed with those gums and with a liquid extract of gold. By degrees, the milky water of the agitated deep turned into clarified butter by virtue of those gums and juices. But nectar did not appear even then. The gods came before the boon-granting Brahman seated on his seat and said, "Sire, we are spent up, we have no strength left to churn further. Nectar hath not yet arisen, so that now we have no resource save Narayana." On hearing them, Brahman said to Narayana, "O Lord, condescend to grant the gods strength to churn the deep afresh." Then Narayana, agreeing to grant their various prayers, said, "Ye wise ones, I grant you sufficient strength. Go, put the mountain in position again and churn the water." Established thus in strength, the gods recommenced churning. After a while, the mild moon of 1,000 rays emerged from the ocean. Thereafter sprung forth Lakshmi dressed in white, then Soma, then the white steed, and then the celestial gem Kaustuba which graces the breast of Narayana. Then Lakshmi, Soma and the steed, fleet as the mind, all came before the gods on high. Then arose the divine Dhanvantari himself with the white vessel of nectar in his hand. And seeing him, the Asuras set up a loud cry, saying, "It be ours." And at length rose the great elephant, Airavata, of huge body and with 2 pair of white tusks. And him took Indra the wielder of the thunderbolt. But with the churning still going on, the poison Kurukṣetra appeared at last. Engulfing the earth, it suddenly blazed up like a fire attended with fumes. And by the scent of the fearful Kurukṣetra, the 3 worlds were stupefied. And then Shiva, being solicited by Brahman, swallowed that poison for the safety of the creation. The divine Mahābhārata held it in his throat, and it is said that from that time he is called Nilakantha, blue-throated. Seeing all these wondrous things, the Asuras were filled with despair, and got themselves prepared for entering into hostilities with the gods for the possession of Lakshmi and Amrita. Thereupon Narayana called his bewitching Maya, elusive power, to his aid, and assuming the form of an enticing female, coquetted with the Danavas. The Danavas and the Daityas, charmed with her exquisite beauty and grace, lost their reason and unanimously placed the Amrita in the hands of that fair damsel. So ends the 18th section in the Astika Parva of the Adiparva. The Mahābhārata. Adiparva. Section 19. Astika Parva continued. Sati said, "Then the Daityas and the Danavas, equipped with first-class armors and various weapons, attacked the gods. In the meantime the valiant Lord Vishnu, in the form of an enchantress accompanied by Nara, deceived the mighty Danavas and took away the Amrita from their hands. And all the gods at that time of great fright drank the Amrita with delight, receiving it from Vishnu. And while the gods were partaking of it, after which they had so much hankered, a Danava named Rāhu was also drinking it among them in the guise of a god. And when the Amrita had reached Rāhu's throat only, Surya and Soma recognized him and intimated the fact to the gods. And Narayana instantly cut off with his discus the well-adorned head of the Danava who was drinking the Amrita without permission. And the huge head of the Danava, cut off by the discus and resembling a mountain peak, then rose up to the sky and began to utter dreadful cries. And the Danava's headless trunk, falling upon the ground and rolling thereon, made the earth tremble with her mountains, forests and islands. And from that time there is a long-standing quarrel between Rāhu's head and Surya and Soma. And to this day it swalloweth Surya and Soma, during solar and lunar eclipses. Then Narayana, quitting his enchanting female form and hurling many terrible weapons at the Danavas, made them tremble. And thus on the shores of the saltwater sea, commenced the dreadful battle of the gods and the Asuras. And sharp-pointed javelins and lances and various weapons by thousands began to be discharged on all sides. And mangled with the discus and wounded with swords, darts and maces, the Asuras in large numbers vomited blood and lay prostrate on the earth. Cut off from the trunks with sharp double-edged swords, heads adorned with bright gold, fell continually on the field of battle. Their bodies drenched in gore, the great Asuras lay dead everywhere. It seemed as if red-dyed mountain peaks lay scattered all around. And when the sun rose in his splendor, thousands of warriors struck one another with weapons, and cries of distress were heard everywhere. The warriors fighting at a distance from one another brought one another down by sharp iron missiles, and those fighting at close quarters slew one another with blows of their fists. And the air was filled with shrieks of distress. Everywhere were heard the alarming sounds: cut, pierce, at them, hurl down, advance. And when the battle was raging fiercely, Nara and Narayana entered the field. And Narayana, seeing the celestial bow in the hand of Nara, called to mind his own weapon, the Danava-destroying discus. And lo! The discus, Sudarsana, destroyer of enemies, like to agony and effulgence and dreadful in battle, came from the sky as soon as thought of. And when it came, Narayana, a fierce energy, possessing arms like the trunk of an elephant, hurled with great force that weapon of extraordinary luster, effulgent as blazing fire, dreadful and capable of destroying hostile towns. And that discus, blazing like the fire that consumeth all things at the end of Yuga, hurled with force from the hands of Narayana, and falling constantly everywhere, destroyed the Daityas and the Danavas by thousands. Sometimes it blazed like fire and consumed them all, sometimes it struck them down as it coursed through the sky, and sometimes, falling on the earth, it drank their lifeblood like a goblin. On the other hand, the Danavas, white as the clouds from which the rain hath dropped, possessing great strength and bold hearts, ascended the sky, and by hurling down thousands of mountains, continually harassed the gods. And those dreadful mountains, like masses of clouds, with their trees and flat tops, falling from the sky, collided with one another and produced a tremendous roar. And when thousands of warriors shouted without intermission in the field of battle and mountains with the woods thereon began to fall around, the earth with her forests trembled. Then the divine Nara appeared at the scene of the dreadful conflict between the Asuras and the Ganas, the followers of Rudra, and reducing to dust those rocks by means of his gold-headed arrows, he covered the heavens with dust. Thus discomfited by the gods, and seeing the furious discus scouring the fields of heaven like a blazing flame, the mighty Danavas entered the bowels of the earth, while others plunged into the sea of salt waters. And having gained the victory, the gods offered due respect to Mandara and placed him again on his own base. And the nectar-bearing gods made the heavens resound with their shouts, and went to their own abodes. And the gods, on returning to the heavens, rejoiced greatly, and Indra and the other deities made over to Narayana the vessel of Amrita for careful keeping. And so ends the 19th section in the Astika Parva of the Adi Parva.